Yay! I am so happy to be here. I've been here for a couple of days, and I've had nothing but wonderful conversations with everyone that I've met. The guys behind UX Poland, thank you so much. You've hosted us beautifully. I feel very, very welcome here. Especially big fan of your beer, which I had way too much of when I first arrived. Huge, huge fan. So hello. I'm going to be talking about design as a superpower because I really do believe that design is a superpower. But like every superpower, we need to talk about good and evil. And so I'm going to start by telling you a story about one of my very, very first bosses. He used to give me feedback on my work in sausages. So if I produced really, really great work, like lots of awesome substance, great content, but it wasn't very beautiful, he would say, this is all sausage, no sizzle. And if I presented something to him that was very beautiful, had lots of flourish, was glossy, but it lacked content, it lacked substance, he would say, Lee, this is all sizzle, no sausage. And it kind of struck me when I was preparing for this talk that design has gone from sizzle to sausage. It used to be that when you thought about design, you would think about posters, toasters, beautiful things that you would make and design and fill them with color and art. And now you think about design and you've got people like this guy in the boardroom of Apple solving huge problems. Design thinking is used all over the world to solve some of the biggest challenges we face. And we just heard from Amnesty International about the power that design could have in solving some of humanity's biggest problems. And of course, our toolkit is getting much smarter. As designers, we use things like neuroscience, social psychology, behavioral economics. We've all read the nudge books. We're thinking about things like, how are we going to make people fall in love with our product? We're thinking about irrational behavior. And all of these things is really, really making us smarter and better, smarter and more influential in the services and the products that we create for people. And so it really makes me think about, how are we using these superpowers? Are we using them for good or evil? And of course, this is UX Poland. This is mostly a digital event. But I'm actually going to start with some examples that you see out in the real world, because I think they're a bit more obvious. So the first is called Gruen transfer. You've probably not heard of it, but you've definitely experienced it. So Gruen transfer is that moment where you walk into a shopping mall and you're completely confused about where you should go. And it's like when you go to IKEA and you're like, why am I walking? Why have I bought candles and pots and pans that I never came in for? It's called Gruen transfer, and it's intentionally confusing design that's created to make you a bit bamboozled to buy things that you didn't set out to buy. This is my favorite, casino carpets. Anyone who's ever been into a casino and looked at the carpets, they're like the worst carpets in the world, right? They're garish, they're full of swirls and colors, really difficult to look at, and that's the point. The casinos don't want you looking at the carpets, they want you head up. They want you looking at the slot machines, the bells, the whistles. They want to seduce you in to gambling. Really, really clever design. These guys, pig's ears. They're designed to stop kids from skateboarding on ledges in public spaces. Seen those everywhere, right? Slightly more evil, homeless spikes. Have you guys seen these? They're designed in they're put in places where homeless people might be able to take shelter from the weather, and they're designed to put them off. Really horrible, right? These appeared all over London. It felt like overnight, and everyone was up in arms about it. They're like, how are we treating our fellow human beings this way? Then there's this thing, the Camden bench, named after a neighborhood in London, and it's actually designed for skateboarders and homeless people. So you can't skateboard on this bench, and you also can't take shelter under it. And actually, if you look at it, sitting on it looks pretty shit as well, right? No one on that bench looks comfortable. So you think about it, actually, empathy is what we do as designers. We are really, really great at understanding the end user. But if these examples teach us anything, it's that empathy does not equal care. And this kind of makes me think of Spider-Man and the conversation that he had with his Uncle Ben. Do you remember this?
Peter, these are the years when a man changes into the man he's going to become the rest of his life. Just be careful who you change into. But just because you can beat him up doesn't give you the right to. Remember, with great power comes great responsibility.
Remember, with great power comes great responsibility. Not actually Spider-Man's uncle, but Voltaire. So today, I'm going to take you through a bunch of research that I've done in preparation for this talk, and I'm going to talk about what it means to take responsibility as a designer. I'm going to introduce you to some smart people who are already having this conversation out there that you may have heard of. Give you some examples of what have started to become known as dark patterns, dark UI and UX. Think a little bit about the pressures that we're under as designers to do things like upsell and how we reconcile that with our wish to hopefully do good and not evil. Think about, is good design good for business? And finally, think about what we as an industry should be doing about all of this. Okay, so first up, lots and lots of clever people are already talking about this, and there's loads of wonderful stuff online. A couple of them are the Designer's Oath, which you can see at designersoath.com. This was a one-year experiment set up by a design studio in Boston called MadPow. And they went on a tour of a number of different states and countries in Europe, collecting oaths from different designers on how they would be ethical. And so this is an example of an oath from Germany by Alison Wong. And it says, "Most especially, I must remember that in building and creating, I may also do harm and destroy. I must do more than design out of good intentions. I must aim to understand the consequence of my practice with great humbleness and awareness of my own biases. Above all, I must not play God." Big words, Alison Wong, thank you very much. Also out there is darkpatterns.org. Has anyone seen this? Oh, good. This work is really, really fantastic, and I want to give a huge shout out to Harry Brignall, who is the founder of Dark Patterns, who was a great collaborator of mine in preparation for this presentation, really, really generous with his insights and his content. We're going to work through some of his work in the next section of this talk. But really, dark patterns, for those of you who don't know, are attempting to catalog all of the different types of anti-patterns or dark patterns that you might encounter on the web. And he tells this really sweet story. He's like, people say, well, if you're anti-dark patterns, why are you creating a website that shows bad people how to use them? And his theory is actually really interesting. He's like, well, there are two different types of people in this world. There are con artists, and then there's everyone else. And if con artists have secret knowledge, that knowledge is dangerous. But if you take that knowledge and you share it with everyone else, then that knowledge becomes safe. And I really like his thinking. If you're smart to the types of techniques and dark patterns that are being used on you, they're less likely to work. It makes sense. All right, so I'm going to introduce you to a couple. The first is trick questions. Pretty simple, kind of says what you would imagine. It is kind of what you would imagine. We've all kind of fallen foul of it. So pretty straightforward. Here's an example from Sky. Sky is a cable television provider in the UK, and you can see like one of those legendary tick boxes. So Sky may contact you about products and services you may like unless you click to opt out. I'm sorry, Sky, what? And so if I click this, am I saying Sky may contact me, or am I opting out? And I'm not quite sure, right? So hands up if you've never experienced this before. Yeah, everyone has. The minute you get to, two guys are like, no, not me. I don't know about it, but seriously, for me, every time I get to the tick box sections of signing up for anything, I'm like, ugh. I have to go into scrutiny mode and just like, oh my God, what do you guys want from me? Okay. Next up is Ryanair. So Ryanair was submitted to Dark Patterns catalog by a guy called Lee MacGyver, and this is awesome. So what you're about to see is an insurance sell-up page, that's an upsell page that's completely in disguise. So here it is. And what they do here is really smart because nobody in their right minds is going to read every single word on a web page. And Ryanair takes massive advantage of that. So here's a page that says, fill in your passenger information details. And you're like, okay, gonna do this right because if I don't fill this in correctly, I'm not going to be able to get on the airplane. So you do that. And what you don't realize is that you're actually filling in the name of the person who's going to have the insurance. And then you scroll down to the next question, which is all the way down at the bottom of the page, and you see a drop-down menu that says, please select your country of residence. Okay? If you do select your country of residence, boom, you've got insurance, congratulations. And then you're like, well, hold on a second. How do I choose to not have any insurance if that's how I buy it? That makes no sense. Well, if you look through the list of 21 countries, somewhere in between Denmark and Finland is the option, do not insure me. Sneaky, sneaky Ryanair. I honestly think that for the most part, you're just going to select your country and you're going to move on with your life because you don't have time and you're not that cynical. So a really, really dark pattern. A much more simpler one, Faraway bill. So this is something that utility companies are doing quite a lot. They're not sending you your bill in the post. They're sending it to you in your inbox. Most people are not going to open that thing and check the itemized billing. So they're getting away with things that they would never have gotten away with before. Roach Motel. I love Roach Motel. Do you guys know what a Roach Motel is? Okay, so basically, it's if you have cockroaches in your home, which I'm sure none of you lovely people do, there's this thing called a Roach Motel that you can buy that has a really, really sticky base, and it's really attractive to cockroaches. And then the cockroaches come in, and they can't leave because their little cockroach feet are stuck to the sticky paper at the bottom. So Roach Motel is a dark pattern that treats you guys and me like a cockroach. So basically, it does exactly the same thing as the Roach Motel does. It's really, really easy to get into, kind of hard, maybe impossible to get out of. So here's LA Fitness. Easy in, difficult out. Super, super easy to become a member of LA Fitness. You can do it online, use your credit card, done, easy. And you know because they've hired people like you to make that as seamless and as effortless and as intuitive as possible. But then when you want to get away from LA Fitness, when you want to cancel your membership, not so easy. So first of all, you have to look around the site for ages and ages and ages until you find a means to cancel. And then when you find it, you realize you have to write an actual letter on a piece of paper and send it to a PO box. You can't take it to your local gym. And then in a little while, your membership will get canceled. It's not an oversight. This is not a legal thing or a legacy thing. This is an intentional thing to help you to just stick with them. You know, and they're making it so hard that you're probably just not going to bother. Orbitz, another airline, easy in. So you search for flights, you select tickets, you make a purchase. You can have a flight bought in 5 minutes. Amazing. You realize that you've accidentally bought insurance. Hello. And not so easy out. So first you have to locate a number and you see, oh, it's a 24-hour number. That's pretty cool. You call that. Thank you, Orbitz. And then when you do call them, you realize that you're phoning the wrong place. You actually have to phone the insurance company. Insurance company is only open from 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. And that's really smart because that introduces a delay. And in that delay, you're probably just going to think, fuck it. Or you're going to forget. So it's really, really smart. And that can take up to 2 days. If you go through with the whole thing, it takes up to 2 days to cancel. So 5 minutes in, 2 days out. Look at that face. Privacy Zuckering. No guesses what this is about. So this is an amazingly funny, I think, phrase that's coined by the Electronic Frontier Foundation. They describe themselves as protecting your rights in a digital world. And they describe privacy Zuckering as deliberately confusing jargon to trick your users into sharing more about themselves than they really want to. And this is the thing, you know, this is about taking more from people or getting people to do things that they don't really want to do. I've included this one, additional workflow, because when you have work to do that is just so overwhelming that you can't bother, you feel like this guy, you're like, what? I'm gonna do what? So Instagram users, notifications changed recently, and this great tweet, I know what'll make our product better, additional workflows. It will surely increase engagement, enragement. So that's if you wanted to change the notification settings of the people that you were following on Instagram. You had to go to every single profile and change the settings. Too much hard work. Okay, this is the last one. Kate Hudson, lovely Kate Hudson. What's she doing here at a UX conference? Well, She gets my personal infuriation award. And everything that you're about to hear is a personal and true story that happened to me. And I would like to draw your attention to the fact that I'm wearing a geek necklace. So I know what I'm doing online. And yet, Kate Hudson, she screwed me. Right, I'm going to show you what happens. So the first thing that happens when you go onto Fabletics is you see this great offer for a complete activewear outfit, £22, quite nice gear. You're like, yeah. Nice. So you start shopping, and then you're put through this really sweet quiz where they say, what's your favorite way to get fit? Where do you like to get fit? What colors get you moving? What do you like showing off about your body? And you go through this whole quiz, and it's quite sweet. And then at the end, it spits out a personalized activewear outfit just for you. And it's cheap. It's like 22 quid. And you'll see that there's this little sign that says, hurry. You have 59 minutes and 48 seconds. And you're like, quick, Kate Hudson, take my money. I love this. Thank you for my personalized activewear. And so you go through the whole process of checking out. You fill in all the details. I filled in some funny ones to amuse myself. You get to this page to check out. And you're like, well, either I can pay £79 for this outfit, or I can pay £22 and become a VIP. And you can see the little clock at the bottom, 58 minutes. Time is ticking. Take my money. So I hit checkout, and I go through to the final basket page, and I'm like, what is this VIP membership stuff? I don't understand. So I scroll down, and I take a closer look, and it says this. It says 50% off the retail price. It says free delivery, easy returns. It says I get some points. Do you know what it doesn't say? It doesn't say that I'm going to get billed £40 a month, every month, until 9 months have passed, and I'm like, whoa, that is £360. And this is how I felt. I'm like, what do you mean you took £360 of my money and I didn't get any activewear? It makes no sense. So, of course, I went to town. I tweeted them. I called them. I emailed them. They're like, nah, you signed up to the terms and conditions. This is what you signed up for. Blah, 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 blah. It took loads and loads and loads and loads, and eventually I threatened to sue them 3 times, and I got my money back. Thank you, Kate Hudson. Like, exhausting and actually super boring. So, dark patterns, infuriating, right? And blatantly wrong. And then you get to this thing and you're like, well, dark patterns are evil and they must die. Yeah? No. Because look, here's Oxfam. Lovely Oxfam. Organization fighting poverty all over the world. You fill in this form when you want to make a donation, and as you'll see, the donation is set to monthly. And you're like, well, is that unethical? Is that just persuasive? And if it's for Oxfam, is it okay? Is it a dark pattern used for a good cause, and so therefore I'm okay with it? And I don't know. I mean, what do you guys think? Who's okay with this? Nobody. Wow. Because you see, I got to this point in my research, and I was a bit like, no, do you know, it's not that simple, because I felt like John Travolta. I was like, what? I'm a designer. I have been taught to make beautiful experiences for my users. I've been taught to make them sticky and addictive. I've been taught to make them intuitive, to make people want more. And I don't think my users are children. I don't think I need to nanny them. I think that actually, for the most part, if I was giving people the option of giving them loads and loads of warning or just an awesome, easy experience, they would choose the awesome, easy experience. And I was like, this doesn't make sense. This dark pattern stuff is just too subjective. So the more I looked into it, the more confused I became, like this guy. And then I was left with 4 big questions. I was thinking, what is it? What is it that makes good designers go bad? Because someone is doing this work, and they're just people like you and I. Is good design and bad and good business completely opposite things? Can you do good design and that be good for business? And then what should we do about this as designers? What should we do about this as an industry? So I'm going to go through my conclusions to all of this and encourage more discussion around it in the breaks and afterwards. Breaking Bad. Why do good designers go bad? Well, really, It's very interesting. I mean, the guys at Dark Patterns have untangled 4 different factors that they think creates the context in which designers go to the dark side. And the first is aggressive environments. We go to work every day, and we have goals to hit, we have targets to hit for our clients, we have briefs to meet, and our clients might want us to upsell insurance. And if we don't do that, they're going to take their business somewhere else. Your boss is going to be like, actually what makes money isn't the selling of the ticket to the cinema, it's the popcorn. So how can we get people to buy more popcorn when they go to the cinema? And it's not intrinsically evil to be asking these business questions, but we are expected to do more and achieve more every day. The second thing the guys at Dark Patterns have identified is this emphasis on metrics. So it's interesting because the sales funnel is like this, it's almost like a game that designers play, and it gives us this, I can't do that and that at the same time, but it gives us a really small view of the world, this kind of a little nudge here and a little tweak there, and boom, our conversions are going up, and it's almost like a little game. And this focus on the sales funnel and metrics is a big contributing factor to it. Third, everybody's doing it. So seriously, in design, you're all sitting here saying the bad designs, Dark Patterns are bad. We're all doing it. This is part of our day-to-day business right now. And if you don't think there's power in what everyone's doing, I want to remind you of this amazing candid camera clip.
The gentleman in the elevator now is a candid star. These folks who are entering, the man with the white shirt, the lady with the trench coat, and subsequently one other member of our staff, will face the rear. And you'll see how this man in the trench coat tries to maintain his individuality, but little by little, he looks at his watch, but he's really making an excuse for turning just a little bit more to the wall. Now we'll try it once again. Here's the candid subject. Here comes the candid camera staff, 3 of them at least. And this man has apparently been in groups before.
The clip goes on and on and on, but basically when everyone's doing something, it kind of inoculates you to the badness of it. You saw that guy who was kind of, why am I turning around? But he was. And when everyone's doing it, it holds really, really great power. The next thing is that it cannot be parsed. So there's a lot of talk already about black hat and white hat practices in SEO, but of course, SEO is a very algorithmic thing. And there's a big machine at the center of it called Google that checks it out. And if people are doing nefarious things or the practice is a dark hat, it works against them. You can't really do that with UX. You can't use a computer to monitor dark patterns in websites because it's so subjective, it's so human. Computers just aren't smart enough. So that's the other thing. And that's the fourth reason that the guys at Dark Patterns give this kind of four-ingredient recipe for why good designers go bad. And I agree with all of those, but I actually think that there's one other one that is probably more important. And that's just the distance that we have from our users. We do things and we don't really see the impact of the people that we're affecting. And there's this really great study called the trolley problem that demonstrates this perfectly.
A runaway train is heading towards 5 workers on a railway line. There's no way of warning them, but you're standing near a lever that operates some points. Switch the points, and the train goes down a spur. Trouble is, there's another worker on that bit of track too, but it's 1 fatality instead of 5. Should you do that? Many people think the right thing to do would be to switch the points, to sacrifice 1 to save 5, since that produces the best outcome possible. Now imagine the train heading for the workers again. This time it can only be stopped by pushing a very large man off a bridge. His great bulk would stop the train, but he'd die. Should you do that? Most people say no. But why not? Both thought experiments are cases of sacrificing 1 to save 5. What the trolley problem examines is whether moral decisions are simply about outcomes or about the manner in which you achieve them. Some utilitarians argue that the two cases are not importantly different from each other. Both have similar consequences, and consequences are all that really matter. In each case, one person dies and 5 are saved, the best option in each harrowing situation. But lots of people say they would switch the points, but they wouldn't push the man off the bridge. Are they simply inconsistent, or are they onto something?
It's really interesting. Like when you have to actually do the pushing of the man off the bridge and onto the track, your point of view around one human life versus 5 completely changes. And I really think there's something in the kind of distance that we have with our users in dark design. If we were standing in front of them, we might make different decisions. Okay, so we've looked at all of the pressures that designers come under, and most of them are business related. So there are pressures around sales funnel, there are pressures around like aggressive context with your boss and stuff like that. And so it really stopped and made me think about business. And if I'm honest, I kind of felt like if I come here and talk to you lovely people about dark patterns, will people not want to work with me? Will they be like, oh no, that's that ethical girl. I need people who are going to optimize my sales funnel, don't have time working with her. And I actually came to the conclusion that good design is actually really, really good for business. And there are a bunch of reasons why. The first is your reputation cost. And people don't go through an experience and then vaporize into thin air. If they have a shit time with you, they tell their friends. They don't just go away. I mean, ask Kate Hudson. So lots and lots of people had the same experience that I had with Fabletics, and people went to town. Lots of customers were weighing in. And when people like me got really angry with Kate Hudson, there was a huge cost to serve our anger. So Kate Hudson had to pay people to reply to my tweets, to answer my calls, to reply to my emails, and eventually to pay me my money back. So really, when you think about good business, I could have bought my outfit from her, checked out, and she could have kept my money. And I would have gone back, and I would have bought again. But instead, what happened, and I got a full refund. So I actually got free clothes, and she had to serve me and pay people to do that. It's not that business smart. There's the cost of making it up to people as well. When you offer them discount codes to make it up to them, when you go to marketing and you have to start advertising to kind of overcome some of that reputational damage, none of that stuff is free. It all costs money. Discounts, freebies, ad campaigns. This is not smart business. And finally, maybe the most important of all is that, oh, look how sad. There's this really big missed opportunity to build a connection with the customer, to build trust, to offer something more meaningful. So lots and lots of people are talking about how this is much better for business. This is a friend of mine, Stephen, who's written this great book about what he's calling the conscience economy. And he says, a generation of people around the world, from Boston to Bangkok, from New York to New Delhi, are making everyday choices in ways that defy traditional logic. This new generation believes they can and must make the world a better place. And they expect business and government to get with the program. And he talks about people like Tom Shoes. You buy a pair of shoes from him, he gives a pair of shoes to someone in need in Africa, and businesses like that are doing really, really well because of their good conscience. This is the CEO of Ryanair. They had a huge downturn in profits, and people were really, really pissed off with all of that insurance being snuck into their basket. And so he started to turn things around and said, if only I'd learned in college that being nice was good for business, I'd have done it years ago. As long as it boosts profitability, I don't think there's any limit to my niceness. And when they started employing this kind of niceness in their business practices, their profits took off. Oh, no pun intended. Okay, so what should we do about this as designers? How should we navigate this? There's quite a lot of gray area and a lot of subjectivity. And I've spent a lot of time thinking about this, and I've come to the conclusion that there are 2 questions for us to ask ourselves. If the answer is yes, then you're good. You're on the right side of dark patterns. The first one is, am I creating clarity and autonomy for my users? So I'm saying go to town. Design something that is seductive and intuitive and sticky and addictive and amazing. Use all of your superpowers. But just make sure that you're clear on what you're selling people, and that if they want to get out of that at any point, they can. You're not roach motelling them. And in the second part, is like a little bit of heart to go with that head. Close the distance between you and your user. Ask yourself, would I design this for a friend's mum? And if the answer is yes, you're probably good. Probably good. So let's just quickly have a look, like trick questions. Would you sucker your friend's mum into subscribing for something? Probably not. Would you invite people to a party and then just never let them leave? I hope not. You'd never go, just imagine going to the supermarket with a friend's mum and like just throwing shit in there that she didn't want. And then like waiting for it to get to checkout and like, maybe she won't notice. You would just never do that. You would never ever do that in real life. But then what about us as an industry? So as a designer, you could have really, really great like calls on how this isn't really good for business, and you could make really sound arguments about people are going to get pissed off and they're going to come back, and there's the cost of CERM, you're going to do all of that stuff. But as an industry, should we take a bigger stand? So I was looking at our different options, and the first is, well, there's the law. And change is happening in the law all the time. The law is catching up with digital all the time. So at the moment, there's a new EU directive that's resulting in laws around dark patterns being made all the time. In the UK, it's being actioned as the Consumer Rights Directive, and this explicitly makes some dark patterns illegal. Great. Then there's this idea that we could take a Hippocratic Oath, like doctors do before they get sworn in. They promise to protect lives. And whenever I think about this as an option for the industry, my brain kind of goes into sci-fi mode, because you could end up in some really, really mad places. So if you look at what actually happened with the Hippocratic Oath, the church and politics got completely involved in it. Because if you swear and take an oath to protect human life, what about abortion? What about euthanasia? Everyone's going to weigh in on that. And for us as designers, you kind of think, well, where will that leave us? Will we end up in a place where there's like a black market for design, where people are doing underground dark patterns? Maybe. I don't know. Could we end up with designer malpractice? Could you be incarcerated for roach motelling? I don't know. You could keep doing what the guys at Dark Patterns are doing, which is fantastic work. You could keep naming, shaming, scolding people who are doing it badly. Keep making this knowledge public and shared. Look at Tom Hanks. So there are lots of different options available to us. But the more I thought about it, the more I got inspired by the idea of mimicking something that looked and felt a little bit more like the Fair Trade Foundation. So Fair Trade is, you spot their badge, and you know that every time you see a Fair Trade badge, the people behind the bananas or the coffee or whatever it is that you're growing, the growers, the makers, are being fairly traded with. There's no advantage being taken. And I feel like we could do the same thing with ethical experiences. We could kind of create a badge that was an insignia for good design, well-intentioned, ethical design. And what I like about that is it's a kind of celebration of what's good as opposed to a damning of what's bad. I love this, Tim Smith dancing. I could just watch that for ages. So celebrating the things that are going well. You would be putting a kind of mark on things that customers could see as a shorthand for trust. So if you were shopping online, or if a friend's mom was shopping online, they would see the insignia, and that would denote to them that this was a trustworthy place to go. And of course, there's the upside of the people who are doing good work in the world actually having the business benefit of that good work, the money. So I'm kind of thinking that I might start this badge. And I don't even know, it's the first time I've talked to anyone about it, but I'm thinking if there's enough interest and enough intrigue in the notion of it, that, maybe we could do it. Come with. Maybe we could do something about it. So I've set up this little site called decentdesign.org. Kind of hate the name, but it was available and all work in progress. And if you are interested in collaborating or even just chipping in and chiming in with your thoughts and points of view, please go to decentdesign.com. You will find this, or .org, sorry. You will find this, and it says, we believe the internet needs a badge that celebrates ethical design. And share your email address, and I'll keep you posted on whether or not this gains any traction. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for your speech. It was great. Second thing, my English is terrible, so please bear with it. And I think you should say thanks to those guys who invented dark patterns. And here is a reason why. They developed a skill in you to read the text, because all of those examples you shared everywhere, you might read that we are going to include this. They gave you controls to opt out or not to do that. But still you made that. And it's like a law. If you didn't read laws but will kill somebody and will say, oh, I didn't read, it doesn't make you unguilty. You will be guilty because you didn't read the law. And the same situation is going there. So I'm just would like to say that guys and girls, this is internet. We are big guys, girls, we need to read all the information. And dark patterns, until you can opt out of them without too much, paying too much force on that, it's okay. And everywhere in those examples, you have an opportunity for that. So in my opinion, it's just probably not the best way to make you better, but it makes you better. You will read, you will be more attentive, and you won't be lazy because you are dealing with bad design. But this is my personal opinion. What do you think? Are they harmful, or still there is a light side of dark patterns?
So I want to make sure that I understand you correctly. Are you saying that dark patterns can be good because they're making us more attentive as customers?
Yes.
I mean, to be honest,
Tricky.
a lot
Isn't
of
that even more tricky than
a lot
it
of
was
what you're saying
later?
is it just kind of underlines the subjectivity and the grayness around what's good and what's bad. I mean, in a way, you look at things like advertising standards. You could say that I can put out an ad that's a complete lie, and the benefit to consumers is that I'm going to be encouraging them to be cynical or to be paying attention to that ad and make sure that it's right. I don't think that it is the customer's job, personally. I don't think that it is, and I don't want to see an internet where I'm guarded and acting in defense all the time.
Thank you. Here, but training people by making obstacles and forcing them to read carefully what they are handed makes something like psychosis. If it's just exactly like I would steal something from you all the time just to teach you that you should take care of your
Think about a human person
stuff.
that you have
yeah?
a relationship with like that. If there was a human being in this world that you always had to watch, that you always had to be on the defense with, there's no way you would have a good relationship with that person.
Do you saw a movie, Wall-E? And people on those spaceships, they were fat, they were lazy, because everything was comfortable. I guess design is not about making everything comfortable. It's about developing skills in us. What do you think on that?
Yeah, I mean, is an ethical internet going to make us complacent and lazy? Maybe. In a way, I kind of see them as two different things. I think there is I think Wall-E is more related to the stuff that Kendra was talking about outsourcing everything, and about everything kind of coming to you, and about you kind of cocooning in your world. And I think it's less about just having an internet that you can trust.
Okay, so I see one more person there. May I borrow your mic here? So who was the first one?
You were first. Hi, so just a question on the Oxfam example. So I
May I
suppose
have one more mic, please?
at what point do you kind of say if they pre-populated the drop-down with monthly, could they argue that, well, based on their research and what typically people give, and they might argue that it's a bit of a shortcut? So I suppose that kind of, at what level do we kind of say, whereas I'm Irish, so I've used Ryanair a lot, and that drop-down is the worst thing in the world. So I can completely see from that point of view that's really kind of hiding information within it. But if it's something where they might argue that, well, typically this is what people use, and we're just trying to, if you go onto the website every time and you have to fill in a lot of information, could they argue that they're trying to shortcut the process to make it easier for you?
Yeah, I mean, you're totally right. And it's that kind of gray area that left me feeling like John Travolta, because I make decisions like that all the time on behalf of my clients and the products that I make. I choose that way. And that's why for me, those two questions that you ask yourself, they feel like the smartest ones. Because you're like, well, let's just say for argument's sake, a monthly donation is exactly what, as you said, Oxfam saw that this is what people mostly liked, so that's why they made it the default. Then you would say, well, is this clarity? And am I offering autonomy? Yes, you are. Would you do that to a friend's mum? Well, yeah, actually, if that is the default choice, I probably would. And that feels like a really sensible litmus test for me. Because you're right, I mean, the whole thing is just one big gray area.
Okay, we got time for just one more question now.
Thank you for your speech. It was great. You mentioned a lot of things about branding, related to branding and marketing. So it seems to me that it's not only about dark patterns in design are not only about how you design things, but also about branding and how you want to present your company, and all about these sales targets and etc. So I'm wondering, what is the best way to try to introduce some good practices in design and start convincing business people that being good and being nice, as you mentioned, is actually profitable for their business?
Thank you. I would say that in the world as it stands, things like sales and brand and marketing and experience, they're all becoming one and the same thing. You know, so there's no point in having an amazing marketing campaign and then creating an experience that is the complete opposite in meaning and purpose to that brand and marketing. Like, all of these things have to be the same thing. And sales funnels deserve to be optimized. Businesses deserve to be made better. So I would say, you know, maintain all of those things, maintain them as one. And if you need to make a case for good design in things like sales funnel optimization, think about the big picture. You know, think about what it's going to cost you to serve the complaints that come in if you don't do an ethical job. Think about the different ways that people are going to erode your brand equity and how you're going to have to spend lots and lots of money to make it up to them through things like marketing. The important thing here is that all of these things are linked up. And when you pull a lever on one side, it has a kind of ripple effect in the rest of them. It doesn't just disappear. It's not confined.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lea.
Cool. I wish I had one of those. I should have thought about that.
Okay, so that's for you then.
Thank you.
Here you are.